this lesson, I'll teach you guys how to light a car properly. So let's get started. So open up the Epic Games Launcher, and first thing we want is the car configurator project so we can get the car model. So if you don't already have it, you can go to Marketplace, and over here you can search for car config and click on max price free, and you should see this project provided by Epic Games. And once you are over here, you can get the project and you can create a new project. Just click here and click on create. That will create a new project for you. I already have this created, so I won't do that. Next up, let's create a new project. So I'm going to go into games, blank, enable starter content and ray tracing. Name this car scene. And now also I'm gonna bring in the car model. So I'll open the car configurator project. Once you have the project open, you can just click on the car, right click on this and browse to asset. And over here on the blueprint class of the car, you can right click asset actions and click on migrate and click OK. And now over here in Unreal Projects, search for the new project you created, the car one, and open that and click on content and just select folder, and this should move everything to your new project. And now that's done, we can just close this project. We don't need that anymore. And over here in car configurator, we have the car model here. Now let's go over the project settings, make sure everything is enabled, ray tracing, and use hard ray tracing when available. Tick that and we can get started now. Before I start making the scene, I'm going to enable the movie render queue just because we're going to need it later, and then we can restart the project. Let's start setting the scene up now. So file, new level, empty level, create, go into your content browser, under content, car configurator, car blueprints, and we'll drag this car blueprint in, and I'll reset the location. Now I'm going to bring in a plane, shapes plane for the floor. Set this, scale this up. I'm going to come over here in scale, lock the scale and type in 100. And we can move the car up like this. Also, if you can't see anything, you can bring in a directional light while you're setting the scene up. So now that we have this set up here, I'll bring in one rect light, this in, reset the location, move this up, rotate this 90 degrees above the car, like this, move this up a little bit, and now I'm going to change the color of the floor. So I'm gonna go into content, new folder, assets, new folder, materials. I'm gonna set up a base material, m_base. Hold down 3 and click. Hold down 1 and click twice. And select all of these, right click, convert to parameter. and I'm gonna name this color, name this metallic, and this can be roughness. Now I'm gonna plug these in, color to base color, metallic to metallic, roughness to roughness. Default roughness is going to be 0.5 and the default color can be white. And I'm going to save this. Now I'm going to right click on this material and create a material instance. I'm going to name this m underscore floor, and I'll apply this material to the floor plane by dragging this onto the floor plane. Now I'm going to change the color and I'm going to make this much darker. Maybe something like this with the value of 0.15 or 0.1. Yeah, 0.1 is good. So we have set this up for now. Now I'm going to set up a camera so we can look at the lighting while we're working. So I'm going to bring in a camera, go into cinematics, Cine Camera Actor, bring this in and reset the location, move this up, rotate this 90 degrees, move this somewhere here like this, down, and I'm going to change the film back to DSLR, change the focal length to 90 and move this back like this, somewhere around here. And also I'm going to go into the focus settings and click on the dropper and select the car. Make sure the car is in focus. This a bit maybe. Now I'm going to set up a split screen view. So click on this button here and layouts, two pane layouts. Go into perspective and select the camera and pilot it. So we have this view here. Maybe turn real time on by clicking on this here. Now we can start working on the lighting. So I'll make this smaller a bit. I'll bring in a post-process volume in Visual Effects, post-process volume, drag this in, go down and enable infinite extent. So we can apply these settings to the entire scene. Move this out of the way. Go into exposure on the top and enable min and max EV. Set these to 1 and now we can start lighting our scene. So I'm going to select this light, enable ray trace shadows, and now I can start changing the size. So I'm going to increase the height to 1000 and I'll increase the width to something like 300. Something like that is good. So now I'll change the intensity, bring this up, maybe something like 120. That seems good. Now I'll duplicate this light by holding down Alt and moving this. I'll reset the intensity for now and I'll rotate this. On the x-axis, I'll rotate this maybe 40 degrees and then move this back a little bit, something like this. I'm gonna make this smaller, reduce the height to 800 and reduce the width. You can see by changing the width how it's affecting the reflections. So depending on what kind of reflection you want, you can change the size. So something like this is good, 150. And now I'll increase the intensity. Something like 50 or 60 is good. move this back depending on where you want the reflections. I'll move this somewhere around here. This looks good. And now I'll duplicate this, but before duplicating it, I'll copy the Y location from here, click on it and Control C. Now I'll duplicate this light and just delete this and type in minus and then paste the Y location. So it's exactly the same distance from the car on the other side, and we can rotate this 180 degrees so we light this from both directions. So this is what it looks like right now. We can adjust a few settings in the post-process volume. I'm going to go here into color grading and global. I'm going to go into contrast and I'll bump this up to 1.2, maybe 1.25. This looks good. And now you can adjust the intensity of the lights and move them around depending on what kind of reflections you want on the car. And also you can add in other lights to change the reflection. Also, I'll change these lights all to movable. And just to show you a few examples, you can add in some lights like a point light, and you can change the source radius to like 5, and you can increase the length and rotate this. You can place these on the ground and you can see what kind of effect this is going to have. And you can add lights like these if you want to add more reflections. Move these around like this, but I'm gonna leave this as this right now. This looks good to me. And now we can render this out. So just to explain a few things, for cars and reflective objects, it's not, we don't want to focus more on the shadows, but more on the reflections. You can either use an HDRI to get good reflections, or you can set up lights that look good in the reflections like we have over here. Because this is such a reflective object, we're going to show the form of through the reflections, the shape of the reflections on the body. So that's why we're setting up huge lights and covering a lot of area with the lights so you can see them in the reflections. Just like this. And it depends on what kind of object you have. If it's more of a rough object, then you want to focus on the shadows to reveal the form of the object. Or if it's a very reflective object, then you'd want to place lights in a way that look good on the reflection. So that's why this is how they light cars in a studio usually, with big lights, because they reflect a lot. Now to render this scene out, we're gonna save this map. So we can either press Control S and go into assets and create a new folder, maps or levels. I'm gonna name this car scene 01 and save this. Now I'm going to go back to a single panel view, layouts, one panel, and I'm going to create a new cinematic, a sequence. I'm going to create a new folder here in assets, name this SEQ, create a new level sequence by going into cinematics level sequence, SEQ underscore car scene 01. And now I'm going to open this up. We're going to click on the camera here, drag this in. Now we have our camera and we're going to click on render and on settings, unsaved config. I'm going to bring in the game overrides, anti-aliasing, set the anti-aliasing override, enable this and set this to 64. But make this something like 8 or 16 if you're using if you're rendering out animations, or you could completely remove this if you want faster renders, but that does affect the final quality depending on the animation. This usually improves motion blur and depth of field and stuff like that. Next up, what we can do is we can add console variables, and these are commands we can set that will execute when rendering. So one of the console variables we will set is if we go into console variables and click this plus icon, we can type in r dot reflections dot denoiser, and we can set this to 0. This will basically make our reflections more sharper. So once we have all of this set, we can just go into output, select our resolution, then use whatever resolution you want. I'm going for 4K, and over here in use custom playback range, I'll set this from 1 frame to 2 frames. Also, if your scene has something that's simulating like particles, you can go into anti-aliasing and uh, put in something in the engine warm-up count so it doesn't look weird when the render starts suddenly. So I'm going to put in something like 8 here, but you don't have to do it for a scene like this where there's no animation or there's no particles or something that's simulating. So I'll remove that. Now I'm just going to hit render and we can render this out. And in the project, we can go into saved movie renders, and here's our render.